do it. So just released today, the legislature has announced the slate of bills for the special session. So you have SB2 and HB1 a bill to reject COVID-19 vaccine mandates, right? Number one, bills 1 and 2 in the House and the Senate are to reject vaccine mandates. Then we have 5 and 6. Oh, well, let's try this one. 7 and 8 to remove authority of state health officers to order vaccinations. Because most people don't know, if you don't live in Florida, even people who live in Florida don't know this. Florida has on the books a statute that allows state health officers to force vaccinate people using, and this is the language of the bill, quote, whatever means necessary. That's not me. That's actually the statutory language. Whatever means necessary to force vaccinate people. And Senate Bill 8 and House Bill 7 would take that out. The other big story is something that DeSantis has been pushing through. And that's the to pull Florida out of federal OSHA. So ditch OSHA in a fight over vaccine mandates. So what happens here is we have Senate Bill 5, Senate Bill 6, and House Bill 8. House Bill 5. 6B and 5B. 6B and 5B to begin withdrawing from OSHA. So the Florida legislature is put forward a piece of legislation to kick the federal OSHA out of the state of Florida and just go with state occupational health. This is probably one of the most states' rights pieces of legislation I've seen in America to date. This kicking out an entire federal executive agency, which, by the way, is not authorized by the Constitution. So there's no authorization in the Constitution for the federal government to have an occupational safety and hazard organization, safety and health organization inside the states. So, I mean, if you want to have an OSHA, you can have one in Washington, D.C., where the federal government rules. You can run OSHA on federal land, and you can run OSHA in the territories. But within the internal operations of the state, that's a completely and totally unconstitutional agency. What we're doing, or what we've been doing, this is very, very exciting bit of news. This also came out over the weekend, JC. The federal courts have stopped OSHA's vaccine mandate until the courts can hear the case. Now, I actually have the opinion right here. The case is BST Holding v. OSHA, okay? Now, what's interesting is because this is a circuit case, from a legal perspective, it is only binding within that circuit. But it is not legally binding in other circuits, but it is influential to the point that OSHA is on notice that there is a stay. There are a ton of plaintiffs in this case. Yeah. Answers in Genesis. Yeah. I see there. I know Daily Wire was one of these. There's an airline in here. Let's see. Daystar Television Network, State of Mississippi. There are several states, state of Texas. Yes, here's the state of Texas. Yeah, so quite a few. Big lawsuit, American Family Association. The state of South Carolina. Yep. The state of Utah. Yep. Daystar. All of these versus OSHA. Okay. So here is just the simple write-up. Okay. Before the court is the petitioner's emergency motion to stay enforcement of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's November 5th, 2021 emergency temporary standard. I love how they subtitled it, the mandate, pending expedited judicial review. Because the petitions give cause to believe there are grave statutory and constitutional issues with the mandate is hereby stayed pending further action by this court. Now look at the footnote, because this is part of what I was trying to explain to you. Pursuant to the Fifth Circuit Rule 47.5, the court has determined that this opinion should not be published and is not precedent except under the limited circumstances set forth in the Fifth Circuit Rule. This order addresses only emergency motion filed by the above captioned petitioners. Going forward, the clerk of court shall ensure that all related motions and petitions in this court be consolidated under this case number, and that all parties, including the government, make all related filings to this case. So if somebody comes along and files against OSHA in this same circuit, they will now all be added to this list of plaintiffs. So this list of petitioners could grow as people sign on. But for the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, you will see that the OSHA's rules are actually now not allowed to legally be employed. Now, will that affect other circuits? Because there are 11 circuits. From a jurisdictional perspective, it is not binding on the other circuits. From a practical perspective, JC, well, historically, OSHA would not push it.
Right.
But we're living in a different day and age.
Yeah.
We're living in a day and age where OSHA only wants to bully. They don't care. You see, because it's not about health or safety, it's about the profits, right? How many people can we push through the profits of these jabs before we get kicked in the teeth, right? That's why they issue these mandates the way they do, without informing people of the risks and the benefits, without informing people of the right for exemptions, without actually advocating or even informing people of their rights under the Civil Rights Act. Can you imagine, in anything but this, a civil rights violation being pushed by the federal government? I mean, seriously, can you imagine the federal government pushing a civil rights violation and not getting called on it? But that's what's happening here. So anyway.
Can you see this question?
In normal, okay. No, hold on.
If Florida gets rid of OSHA, how does that affect federal construction projects, for example?
Well, federal construction projects would be conducted on federal property, okay? OSHA would still have jurisdiction on federal property, and OSHA would still have jurisdiction with federal employees, if you're talking from a constitutionalist perspective.
I think a lot of it would depend on the wording of the, whatever law comes out of this legislative session, of how that would play out.
Now remember,
but you can still have a state OSHA.
Right, you still have a state OSHA, but look, let me point out something to you, right? Remember that the federal government had the Federal Fugitive Slave Act, and they tried to enforce the Federal Fugitive Slave Act on other states.
Wisconsin.
And Wisconsin, being one of them, passed legislation and said, there'll be no Federal Fugitive Slave Act in our state. And they upheld that legislation by refusing to comply.
Because they were trying to co-opt, they were trying to make the judges and assist the marshals. Right. And that's as what Bernie talked about at the rally, the non-commandeering doctrine. Yes. Where that the federal government can't commandeer state resources like local sheriff and judges and things like that to enforce their dictates. Yeah. So it's one of the ways they would stand against that sort of thing.
So OSHA,
or they can do what Brad Rogers did and follow through with what Brad Rogers said he was going to do and just arrest their agents and throw them in jail, and then they can come and bail them out.